I'm Ted Adair. I served in the United States Army, and Leesburg, Virginia, it's home. And it has been for our family since 2013 when we moved to the area. Over the past few months, I've been spending a lot of time locally here in Leesburg with veterans and their neighbors and family members and supporters. And a lot of people have been asking me, okay, Ted, what is it that you're building with the Oath and Oak? And there's a lot of different answers to that question, but fundamentally, at its core, the work we're doing is to establish a place and a space for connection for veterans, for their families and supporters. And we believe that that starts here locally in a place like Leesburg. Oak Lines, that's our flagship podcast, and it's where these conversations around veteran identity, transition, and entrepreneurial journeys take place. And I want to give a huge shout out to our friends at Rebellion Bourbon Bar and Kitchen Restaurant downtown Leesburg. It is pure Americana, and they've graciously given us space in the restaurant upstairs to film our podcast, meet with veterans, hear their stories of service and transition. And it's ultimately a jump headquarters for us, and super grateful for that partnership. After service to the person, every veteran that I've spoken with has said that they are looking for that sense of meaning and connection and purpose that they had when they were in the uniform. And we believe that that reignition, that rediscovery of identity can take place in real places with real people and real conversations in a place downtown, like downtown Leesburg. Our first conversation on the Oak Lines, it's a great one, and excited to introduce you all to the Avila family. They're an Army family, and they are entrepreneurs and owners of Casa de Avilas, a gourmet taco restaurant here downtown Leesburg. Encourage you to stop by if you're ever in the area. And I'd say my last thought is I often close by saying, stay rooted, find your outpost. And this came from my own transition long after I left the Army, and I discovered that your transition from the military is an ongoing process. It's not a one and done type thing. And I'm happy to share that ethos with you here, and happy to have you with us on this journey with the Oath and Oak. Welcome to the Oak Lines, where veteran stories find new roots and our community helps them write their next chapters. I'm Ted Adair, a U.S. Army veteran and founder of the Oath and Oak. It's a gathering place and a storytelling platform built in Leesburg, Virginia. We share stories of veterans finding purpose in service, business, creativity, family, and community. Each one a new way forward. At Oath and Oak, we believe service doesn't end when the uniform comes off. It just takes new forms. Through conversations, through events and workshops, we dig into how creativity, community, and emerging technology help veterans shape what comes next. And we savor each story along the way. This is the Oak Lines. Stay rooted. Find your outpost.
Stephanie Avila and our friends from the Casa de Avila. And listen, we just had a great conversation back in the room, and I got to hear about the vision for the restaurant, and just really excited that you and Abraham decided that you were going to spend some time with me today. And I know we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks, but I don't know if I shared this with you, but Abraham and I spent probably about 45 minutes to an hour sitting out in front of a bench in front of one of the local buildings here in Leesburg. Did he mention that the other day?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had it was one of the best conversations, and sincere. When you get a couple of veterans together, there's just a familiarity and a trust factor that pops into the conversation. One of the things he shared with me, he said, listen, you got to figure out how to get Steph on camera and have a conversation, because she's really the visionary that said, we are going to get into hospitality and we're going to share our family recipes with Leesburg and the greater DC metro area. I'm really, really interested and fascinated by your entrepreneurial journey. How did you decide we're going to sell some tacos?
Great question. Well, thank you so much for having us here. We are so honored to be on your podcast. I think when I first started thinking about tacos, it was more of just a nostalgic feeling when we were living in Colorado. Abraham was stationed at Fort Carson, and we just had a lot of his military buddies that would come over on the weekends, and we would all just grill and cook. And it was just one of the most heartwarming times that we experienced. And so we just had like our weekly traditions. So his friends would come over, we would all hang out, or if we were running errands and he was getting his hair cut, we would run over to the Mexican market, grab some tacos, or go to the bakery. But once we came back to Virginia, it was very bittersweet. We definitely missed our family that was here, but we also formed a family back in Colorado. And so we just really missed that during COVID. It just changed things. We stepped back and really reflected. And I'm like, Life is too short. Let's start a business." But I wasn't sure what kind of business, but I knew like I love tacos. If we could do a business that's with something that we love, why not? And so when I brought the idea to Abraham, he was just, "Oh, it's sure, like you're not going to do it." And I'm like, Absolutely, I am going to do it." So he told me like get registered. He had a business at that time. He was doing handyman work. So I told him like, "Can you help me register the business, get the licensing?" He's like, "No, you have to do it yourself."
I think he wanted to
Yeah.
see if you were all in, right?
Yeah, it was a test. So I was like, "Okay, fine. I'm going to register the business. I'm going to get this off the ground." I contacted his mom and his sister. And I told them, "Hey guys, I need you guys because your mom, she does amazing food. I know that we can really get this started." And so they were like, they didn't even bat an eye. They were like, "Yeah, we're in." And I'm like, "Yes, like now I have like my dream team." And I know
You
like
formed your own Avengers.
yeah, yeah,
This is amazing. Great.
and then once he said yes, I'm like, this is gonna take off the ground. Like I know that this is gonna work. And I would see birria tacos. I don't know if you're familiar with birria tacos, but they're like the red. It's like a meaty. It's like a shredded beef
Yeah.
cooked for several hours. Our process takes 16 hours, and it brings a broth. So you dunk it in the broth. You can sip it, but it's amazing. So you have to try those.
Oh, when I bring the family in next time, I'm telling you, Megan Adair, Ashton Adair, Brooks Adair, Madison Adair, they're all over.
That's the taco that started it all. And I just remember
I
like,
feel like that's a T-shirt, the taco that started it all.
yeah,
That's
exactly. And it is still one of our most popular tacos. So it's really good. So, but yeah, once the first day that we opened, it was like a really big hit. We sold 300 tacos the very first day.
incredible.
Yeah. And then Abraham was like, "Okay, yeah, I think I'm going to quit my handyman business and I'm going to help you with this taco business."
You made him a believer.
Yes.
I'm curious.
Yes.
From the moment you had the inspiration for the idea, I think you mentioned that maybe you saw something on Netflix, but from the moment you had the idea to that first day where you sold 300 tacos, what was the timeline for that for you guys? And then at what point did Abraham become a believer?
Yeah, so he noticed that I was definitely more motivated about it. So I saw it was a show on Netflix that just showed food vendors around the world, and they had very little resources. And so I told him about it. I'm like, "I think that this could work. We're in a country that has vast resources. Like, why can't we do it?"
Absolutely.
And so we started trying out local taco shops, like kind of tasting, like, okay, what's in their recipe, like what's good, what's not good. And then he just kind of gave me like little pointers, like, yeah, you should test out or food places, get pricing on equipment, get pricing on ingredients. And then I think little by little, he was starting to think, okay, like she's serious about this. But I think the day that he became the believer was the first day that we saw.
I mean, there's nothing better than seeing it happen in real time. That must have been just a dopamine hit, right? Like it's just an excitement
Yeah.
that goes, oh my gosh, we've put all this effort into building this and we're seeing it come to life in real time. It's an incredible story. I want to go back to, you mentioned the community aspect in Colorado, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I imagine that kind of recreating an aspect of that community, but here
Yeah.
it is a part of the ethos of the business, but also you as a team and as a couple and family. So maybe tell me a little about some of the things that you valued from your time in the military as a spouse, and then how you've recreated an aspect of that with Avilas.
Yeah, definitely. Since we were so far away from home and we were really young at that time, I felt like the military is just a different community. So when Abraham got deployed, I remember we had a veteran neighbor who was right across from us, and I was doing the lawn. I was like 22, 23. I didn't do the lawn at my mom's house. And so I remember like he sent his son over and he gave us this, the brown paper bags for us to the grass, the branches and all that. And I'm like, he didn't have to do that, but that was so kind of him to do that. And I just remember some of his army buddies would stay behind and they were like, if my car broke down, they would be like, Abraham would call them and like, "Hey, can you go help my wife? Something's going on with the car." They didn't necessarily fix the issue, but they gave me some guidance like, "Hey, you can go to this. I know this person." And it was just like they were there for us. And I feel like you just can't find that anywhere. It's just a different, they took care of each other for sure.
I think you have to create it, and I feel like
Right,
that's what
right.
you're doing. You saw that demonstrated in a military community, and now it feels to me every time I walk into your restaurant, I get that same feeling of community. Maybe when we talk to Abraham later, that you've made concerted efforts to get plugged into the local community here in Leesburg,
Definitely.
and I think you're bringing that to life in your own entrepreneurial ventures. It's an incredible, demonstration of resilience. I'm interested in just kind of why Leesburg? How did Leesburg, Virginia pop up on the radar for you guys?
Yeah. So we tried different places. So we live in Fairfax County, and then so we tried Fairfax County, and then we went to Leesburg, and the doors just opened for us here. When we went to talk to the health department, they were just so knowledgeable, so willing to give us all of the information that we needed to start our business. And then we ended up finding Chefscape, and I think that really just like we're like, okay, it's a different market than Fairfax County, and just different, but we just felt like the doors were just opening here. And so once we started Chefscape, it was like a really nice, I guess, like a good stepping ground for us to start building. And then we got with the Loudoun Economic Development, and it just like took off from there. Like there's so much resources that we didn't know that was available
Yeah.
to us. We got to stay here. Like we're just not going anywhere.
At what point did you turn the corner and go, "Uh-oh, we're gonna need some help if we're gonna scale"? Like, what was that moment in time like? And then what steps did you guys take to start really building out the team, right? Because you've got an entire team that has been with you, and I'm interested in hearing about the Washington Commanders' taste of the DMV and kind of prepping the team for that. But maybe you get to talk about building out the business.
Once we got the contract with the stadium, his mom was from since the beginning. So she's like, you guys need, he has brothers. He's like one out of six. So he's like, come on, guys, everybody's going to contribute. They were so willing to do it. Nobody complained. And I think that just made this process amazing because his brothers were all in it. His mom, his brother. Once we went to the stadium, we didn't really know what we were getting ourselves into, but we knew that we needed a team. So it started forming from there. It was first family, and then at Chefscape, it was still family. Then we started hiring people from outside. And now at the restaurant, we're like, yeah, we definitely need to hire more than just family because we don't have enough family to cover all the shit.
One of the things I wanted to get your thoughts on is just, Abraham obviously is an operator, right? I've seen him in action. I've seen the kitchen in action. I've seen him at the front of the house and the back of the house. What is it that you see in him today that maybe was missing a little bit 4 years ago, 5 years ago? And how has that transformation come about? Because I know it's been a journey, and to see him throw himself fully into this has got to be a joy.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say he's a little bit more polished. I think before we were just like running, it was kind of messy. There were a lot of errors that we were making, but he definitely always had a vision. Once he got the vision, he was always speaking about the future. And I think now it's just amazing to see it come to fruition. He's very structured, which has helped him a lot in this business. He's super organized, but I think just his resilience to bounce back from many adversities has helped. He's always been the same. He's always stayed steady. And one thing that he would always say is slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And so I'd be like,
Was
I
that
mean, yeah, okay, like, what do you mean? But now, like, now years later, I understand it. He's always stayed steady and persevered a lot. He's definitely more polished.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I love the slow is smooth and smooth is
Yeah.
fast. That's an old armyism, but it's something that I learned from my family. My dad in particular, he would always say, go slow to go fast. And I was an artilleryman, he was an artilleryman, and that has everything to do to just make, hey, when you're going to load the round, you make sure that that round is the right fuse and the right caliber for that particular gun tube. And I think it applies in making tacos. Believe it or not, who knew? When it goes out into the table
Right.
and gets to your customer, you want to make sure it's the right caliber.
Right, right. And yeah, it's not like it's a very tough business. You definitely need a lot of grit, and he has a lot of grit. And I think some days where I'm just like, oh my gosh, what did we get ourselves into? He's been the one like, no, he has not wavered. He's always kept going. He doesn't really complain. I think I've maybe heard him complain once out of these 5 years, and it's just like, I'm tired. And I'm like, okay, I have like a list, but he's just stayed steady throughout this whole process.
share? Is there anything you would want? I've got a few questions that Abraham doesn't know about yet that I'm going to tee up with. But is there anything that you would want to share with Abraham or your family just about your own personal experience with all of this?
Yeah, I think I'm just super grateful for everybody being on board with this whole crazy taco idea. I just didn't really think how far we could go, but I'm so glad that they joined the bandwagon and they were all in. We continue dreaming, continue building. I think that this is just the start of something great, but I think I'm just really grateful for everything.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love
just an attitude of gratitude.
We can't thank you enough for spending some time with us here on Oath and Oak Lines. I know that my whole crew, we're going to be into Avilas, and we're going to try to make it a tradition. I don't know if weekly is going to be able to work because we got travel sports and all kinds of crazy stuff, but we are going to make a concerted effort to get in there and spend some quality time with you guys.
We look forward.
All right, you're in the hot seat, my friend. I want to ask you first, when I came into the restaurant that one day and tried to introduce myself, what were you thinking, what I was about, and then what maybe you were about to get yourself into?
It's funny because one of the guys, they like, hey, we just opened up. So when we opened up, like everybody and their mother comes out the woodworks and they want to sell you their product, food providers. And so they're like, hey, I think there's another sales guy out there for you. And I was like, oh, man, okay, here we go again. And I walk out there and I meet you and you're like, hey, and as soon as you say your name, Ted Adair, I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, yes, like, I've been meaning to talk to you because you had come in one time before. I wasn't in the building, left your info. I took a picture of it and I just didn't have the time to get back with you. So like, as soon as you say your name, I knew because I talked with our friend Rex and I was super excited. So yeah, I mean, I was pumped and I was like, this is one of those conversations that there's people that come in there and they take the sun away. And then, there's people that when they walk in, it lights up. So you're one of those for me.
I really appreciate that. I didn't have anything to sell, so it was more of just wanting to connect and really hear your story. I heard about you through common friend Rex and read your story online, and I just got fascinated by the story of resilience and what you and Steph have built. And I said, this is a story that needs to be told, but it probably could use something that's a little bit more elevated than an article because I think it gets the information out there. But I think this kind of a conversation, really hearing your story, my hope is that it inspires other veterans and they see what you and your wife have built and go, why not me? So I think I want to start with your military journey. You came to the United States as a kid and planted a flag here and then decided you were going to enlist and go in the Army. So maybe just share a little bit about that decision.
Yeah, so my parents brought us, I'm one of six. My sister, myself, I'm the second one. My sister's the oldest, only female, and then my younger brother. And the other three were born here. We came here when I was 5 years old, raised in Reston, and that's where I met Rex. And growing up, I wanted to become a police officer, a fireman. 9/11 happened. And I was in 8th grade civics class, and they turned the TV on, and we saw the second plane hit the building. And I'm like, this is a terrorist attack. This is what's going on. And as an 8-year-old, an 8th grader, you knew something was wrong. We're under attack, and you're in a country where it doesn't happen. You read about it in Pearl Harbor. You're like, it's no way that this just happened to us. And then they use commercial planes. So that was the moment that I knew, like, my life changed from that moment. There was a 7th grader. I never got his name, but we later found out that his mom dropped him off and jumped on one of those planes that crashed into the World Trade Center. And so, you're like, you count your blessings because you're like, you know what? My dad was down working in D.C. He saw everything shut down, people throwing TVs out their windows. But you count your blessings. You're like, I still have my parents. So you go home and you're seeing all the horrible things on TV. I was too young to join, but I knew I wanted to go. At that point in my life, I wanted to go into the Marines. I was like, I just want to go. I want to go fight and go get them. Fast forward, I didn't graduate high school. Hung out with the wrong crowd. I dropped out. So there was a period in my life that I was kind of lost, just going with the flow. I was always been a hard worker. I worked at, one of the best jobs I had was at Starbucks. So I was a barista, and I was able to get promoted to those license stores that you find inside like the Targets, Safeways. And so I was working there as a manager. And my oldest daughter, she's 16, Layla, she works with us at the restaurant, and she was just born. And I'm like, what am I doing with my life? I need to do something. I can't tell her to go to school, get an education, because I didn't get one. So at the bare minimum, I have to do something to be an example for her. And so I decided to sign up. I went off to the military. I remember talking to my recruiter. When I first wanted to go in, I wanted to go in as a reservist.
Any family members serve? Any connection to the military?
No, I have a younger brother. He's currently serving right now. He's in the Navy. He's probably in now 10 years, and he went through JROTC. I know that me going in was an inspiration for him. And when I decided to get out, he couldn't understand it. He kind of was like, what's he doing? What's he going to do outside the military? I have family members in Mexico that served, the Mexican army. But here in the U.S., I'm the first one. I'm the first one that left the nest. In the Hispanic community, we're close-knit.
Yeah.
It's almost like you leave the nest when you get married. But no, I'm the first one to leave the nest. And at 21, and by the way, at 21, you're still young.
Right.
But when you're in basic training, you're older.
Right.
You have 17, 18-year-olds, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, I'm already 3 years behind these guys. It was a blast.
So deployments,
Yes.
post 9/11. So fast forward, you're in Colorado, 4th ID. You're 11 Bravo, right?
Yeah.
So a proud infantryman. You spent some time flying around in some helos, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So funny enough, when I went in, I told my recruiter, I was like, I don't want to fight. I'll do whatever you want. Like, don't put me in the front. I don't want to fight, and I don't want to drive trucks. I don't want to get blown up. And he was like, oh, yeah, okay, I think we can find something for you. He knew that I don't have a high school diploma. I don't have college credits. I wasn't a U.S. citizen at the time, so, like, my job was limited, and he knew that.
Yeah.
And so he's like, hey, like, Avila, like, if infantry is the only thing available to you, would you still join? Now, at this point, I was already going through the process, and I was like, I mean, I guess, like, if I can change my MOS. Oh, no, yeah. Once you get to after basic, you get to your unit, ask them that you want to reclass.
Wink, wink, nod, nod.
And I was like, oh. And so, no, but I was in winter basic training, and it went from me being scared to me just falling in love with it. And then I got the itch that I'm going to miss Iraq, and I sure did. I missed Iraq, but I got my orders to go to Colorado, and I loved it. Fell in love with it. As soon as I landed in Colorado, Colorado Springs, see the Rockies, and it's a like breathtaking sight. And I got to the unit, loved it, enjoyed it. I'm by myself, so a little bit nervous. I stayed in the dorms for a couple of weeks, then I moved out of there. 6 months later, I'm already downrange.
Yep.
And so those 6 months prior to us leaving, I was afraid to go to work. The guys, they called it the E4 Mafia, and these guys did. You hate coming into work. That was building, no matter what I had, fall in, so you're building that, Steph said earlier, that grit.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what, there's a fire there, but I have to go through it, and there's no other way around it. I just walked through it. And so we deployed. We went on leave a month before we deployed. And so I remember I was sitting Steph was living with her mom. We were dating. And I was in her house, April, and we get a call, and we saw on the news, they killed Bin Laden.
Yep.
And so I called my sergeant. I'm like, Sergeant, like, they killed Bin Laden. Like, does that mean the war's over? I'm gonna go. And he's like, no, you dummy. Like, you're still gonna, like, come back, and we're still deploying.
Yep.
We went. Our mission in Afghanistan was to win the hearts and minds of the Afghan people. And we're like, what do you mean win the hearts and minds of this? So, I was in RC South part in Kandahar, south part of Afghanistan. First 6 months, we were at a little checkpoint, and, our mission was just patrol that area. Well, our zone, our sector, when they killed Bin Laden, there was I don't know if you remember, there was over 400 prisoners that escaped.
Yep.
And, they were in our sector. So our job was, to patrol the area, look for IDs. My next deployment was to Kuwait. So it was a non-combat, but our mission was QRF. The unit I re-enlisted in Afghanistan. Our mission, our unit, they wanted to operate as we were deployed, but they wanted to operate as if we were in garrison.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute, but we could, like, leave any minute. So the two things that I took away from Afghanistan and Kuwait was there was stress, but the level of stress was different. Where you have in Afghanistan that, you're counting your blessings, and you don't realize that back then we're using Skype. I mean, there was times where Skype with my mom and started in gunshots.
Yep.
And, I see my guys jump up and, like, they're running out like flip-flops. And
I remember that.
and I'm a soldier, so I was like, I gotta go. And so, you don't think you throw the laptop off and you will grab, and you have so many conversations, and there's missions that you'll go on, simple patrols, but they're not, that, I'll have a conversation with her, and in the back of your mind, you're like, do I say my goodbyes?
Yeah.
We may not come back from this one.
Right.
There's that little feeling that, and you choose not to, because you don't want them to worry, and so the level of stress is different, and so it does affect people in a different way.
I want to ask, we were talking about this the other day out by the bench, and, the sense of going on R&R. So for folks that maybe are on a deployment, at some point in time, you get to come home and see family. Was Steph already in Colorado waiting for you?
Yeah, so in 2012 in Afghanistan. That was the last, I think we were part of the last year or last unit that did a 12-month deployment. After that, they switched over to 9-month deployment. So I believe they got rid of the R&R.
That makes sense.
And so Steph was in school. She was going to graduate, and I was trying to time it perfectly. She was graduating when I left in May, so I was like, I'm going to come back in May.
Yeah.
So hopefully I can make it to her graduation from nursing school. And so she was still with her mom, and I timed it. My goal was to go 9 months so that when I left in May, I could be back in Virginia in February. My daughter was born Valentine's Day. It's a Valentine's Day baby, and I wanted to be there. At that point, I still hadn't missed any of her birthdays. Me and my mom shared custody of her, and so what's a single guy going to do with the baby out in Colorado?
That's pretty impressive that you hadn't missed a birthday in that span of time with deployments baked in. That's pretty.
Because 6 months into our deployment, we're at checkpoint, with that checkpoint in Afghanistan in Kandahar City. And then we got orders that our company was getting moved up to, they call it the mountains, VSP Lam, Gorak, and our company was being broken apart. So our headquarters was being attached to a special forces unit. 1st and 2nd platoon, they were each being attached to a different Navy SEALs team. And then 3rd platoon, which was I was in, we were getting attached to a special forces team, and our mission was to augment security for them.
Yeah.
We got to go on missions with these guys.
Didn't you mention that you were on a flight with somebody afterwards that you had served with?
So, Ted, we did a lot of missions out of Chinooks. And so I was like, what happened to the Blackhawks? Like, it was Chinooks. They had a lot of people that had to get in and out fast. They're big, and they're behemoth, and they look slow, but those things can move, and they move like,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're hugging the ground, and I mean, it makes you pucker up and tighten on your seat. And so when we were at, this was in, I want to say 2-3 years ago, we were at our location in Chefscape. I was at the bar, grab margaritas, bring some for the guys, and I was talking to another veteran. I consider him like a different time period from us because he's one of the newer generation of vets that came in 3 years, got out. His experience is a little bit different. And so we were talking, and there was another guy that came to order a drink, and he said, hey, you guys serving? I was like, yeah. He's like, were you guys ever on, started saying them names of helicopters? I don't know, man. I know I've been on Blackhawks and Chinooks, and that's about it. And I was like, you serving? He's like, yeah. I was like, where? And he's like, well, I was in Afghanistan. I was like, what year? And he told me that he was in there from 2012 to 2014. And something told me, because you can, there's me being exposed to the special forces guys, the group, and then you have the big army, regular army. Some people carry themselves differently.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this guy, like, I was like, let me ask you a question, man. I was like, does VSP Lam mean anything to you? And he said, holy shit, you probably in the back of my Chinook, man. Now I was finding you guys in and out of missions. And because he was in that zone, flying operators in and out of missions. And so, I mean, it was how big our world is, but at the same time, how small it is.
My parents impressed this on me early, and it's, small world, it's even smaller army or military for our friends that are multi-service. But it's such a, on the one hand, serendipity. Like, who would have thought you would bump into him, years later in in Chefscape? But then also, it is a small army, and we are in a dense military population in Northern Virginia and here in Loudon, and even Leesburg. I've come to discover, I've lived in Leesburg since 2013, and I didn't have an appreciation until I started getting out and about and connecting locally. The number of retired military in the area is just really remarkable, and
It is.
and that your story there is just a testament to small world. We talked the other day about being deployed, and kind of in those calm moments, you're sitting around with your battle buddies, or you're kind of having those what if conversations. And it's, what would you be doing if you weren't sitting right here? And I think being disconnected from, the devices that we've all got shoved in our faces from day to day, maybe share a little bit about what were those conversations that you had with your buddies there? And was the idea of building your own family-oriented restaurant on your bingo card sitting in Afghanistan 2012, 2013 era?
Man, I'll tell you what, Ted, definitely not. It was far from it. I believe that I was going to be a lifer. I was going to stay in, retire. And so when I'm sitting there talking with Martinez, Marmaleo, Lamb, I know I'd be definitely with Steph. And if it was a Saturday night, you'd be getting ready to go to the club. The holidays hit harder because you'd be with your families. What would you be eating? And so sometimes our food, sucked. So you had to use a lot of imagination. You can almost taste it just by memory.
Yeah.
And it hits you. You know, we talked about entrepreneurship was far from my mind. That was going to be a lifer. I just wanted to find a way how I could bring my daughter to be with us. I was always thinking about the next step. I realized to stay in Colorado because at that time, me and Steph were dating. We were engaged. And I was like, I got to convince this girl to move in with me, you know, and take the next step. And so I was thinking always about her. How can I get her to take the next step with me? But as far as I couldn't think 3 steps ahead of me when I was in, but I was nostalgia, my family, my daughter, Steph, and hoping that I can make it to her graduation ceremony, my daughter's birthday. So there's, you know, the guys, they would talk about their families, what they would be doing. I used to be a club promoter. And so I was like, man, you know, I trade in crazy nights, you know, with the girls for a bunch of guys, you know, like, and so we'd go back and forth to those days. I'm like, I don't know what I do, man.
And I think a lot of us, we come back and we think maybe there's just this perfect cookie cutter approach, especially when you get out. And I want to hear your journey with transitioning. I've spent a lot of time talking to veterans who struggle when they get out. I mean, I'm not by any means stretch a statistician, but I know that just anecdotally, most veterans that I talk to don't last a year in that first job that they go and join. And I'm interested in your transition, the ups and the downs, but it sounded like also that there was a mentor that stepped in at some point and kind of gave you some thoughts and ideas. When you merge that together with Steph's vision for the restaurant, it was a spark and a light that helped turn the corner from a time that wasn't particularly happy.
Yeah, absolutely. I got out. I had a buddy, Giovanni Torres. He called me. He's the first person to call me. He's like, hey, bro, I already got a job lined up for you. And I was like, bro, you're amazing. He's an Air Force vet. So I worked at Magnolia's, installing home theater systems. So I was doing that for a while. Before I started, I had still had some time, and I would still wake up early. Because we accustomed to wake up to do PT. PT starts at 7 o'clock. We have to be 5:30. Like, it just, so I was like, my brain with my body was just wired to like, I'm in the wrong because I'm not exercising. The adjustment period, there's different types of transitions. My experience transitioning when you come back from deployments, I believe that it could be better. When you get back, all you want to do is you want to see your family.
Yeah.
So you go through the in process and where they're asking you these questions. And you know that if you answer yes to certain ones, you have to see someone else.
Yeah.
And it delays the time with your family. And so I think a lot of us, we neglect, we're like, we're okay. Don't want to talk to nobody. We're good. I feel like maybe that process could be bettered. They would give us classes about how to be with our spouses. They're like, listen, you guys got to understand, you guys been gone for a year. They've been holding the fort down. They've been paying the bills. You can't just come in and take the reins back. It's a transition process as well. And we're like, oh, never thought about that. And it was true. I think it was a good thing that I was gone because when I was gone, Steph beautified the house. I'm always a numbers guy. And I was like, well, hey, we got to wait. And when I was there, she stayed with my brother and my nephew, and they were able now to get better couches. They took advantage of me being gone to beautify the house, which that's a great thing. And so we come back and we're taking these classes. One thing that stood out to me, they said, you want to have a partner that they use letters. You know, you have an A and, you know, one spouse is leaning on the other. If one falls, the other one falls.
Yeah.
And then if you have a V, at one point they're going to break. The perfect relationship, they said, and I don't like these words perfect. There's nothing perfect.
I agree.
But the one that's more optimal, it would be an H. You're both standing side by side and you both hold your hand out and you connect. So that if somebody drops their hand, you're still standing, you're still going. And that's one of the things that has always attracted me about Steph. She's a go-getter. And, you know, she elevates me. She brings the best out of me. And so that's part of transition. She was also the first one to know that something was going on with me.
Yeah.
Before I even knew something was going on with me. But when you get out, it's, you know, you said it. We're used to like being told where to be, what time, you know, and what uniform to be in. And so we get out. Now we have to think. And so I did not know about that study, but I didn't last in that job for a year. But here with the food, you can see it in people's faces. And people tell us all the time, oh, my kid's picky or my husband's a real picky one. But here food scars it down. So when I left to the military, I grew up in Northern Virginia. My friends, majority of them were Hispanic. So, you know, so when I went in basic training, it was a culture shock for me. I was like, wait a minute, I've never been the minority. Now I am. And so, but it didn't matter the skin color. I remember that there was a point in time when we're in the mountains with that special forces group, the Air Force would drop our food off in pallets.
Yep.
And so we had to go collect them. Always. Do you remember the Rippets?
Yep.
Oh, we never failed that they called it a cigarette roll.
Yeah.
Would be the ones with the ice cream or the energy drinks. But you remember those? We never had plates.
Right.
We ran out of them, so we get cardboards and so we cut them up, and I mean that's how we're eating.
Yeah.
When we were burning feces, we had porta johns, cut the holes out of them. When we were with special forces guys, and we had big pots. So that was my first introduction to burning something in a pot. That we went through there, and in the wintertime, that was the hottest spot in the camp, and so we're eating there, warming up. But we're never leaving our buddies. You always want to be around someone. You never want to be alone. And so I think the human, we crave that. We crave always to be with someone, look for someone.
When you left the military, was there ever a moment where you felt like, oh, that's a thing that's me? And certainly having Steph around, I mean, I know I feel the same way with my wife, Meg, but having somebody there is it. But also maybe you're missing a little bit of that camaraderie from just the military angle, and it's hard to replicate.
100%. When we left, and I don't know, I just think about today, but we never said bye to anybody. And we just, and everybody that, getting orders to go somewhere else, we never said bye. When I got orders, see you later, guys. But we never had a goodbye party.
Yeah.
I never understood why. In a restaurant, we've had college students, and they'll come, get ready to go to college. So we've done something where we start a little tradition where we cut a little cake, balloons, and the first ones were never thought out, not planned out. And so they joked like, oh, we can tell who the favorite ones were. Guys, like we're starting something. And so
you wrote an SOP for it.
We send these guys off well, and it's a goodbye, and hopefully to see you later. Some of them hopefully will come back. And we have this famous thing where the guys in the restaurant know that it's a chow, that little call thing, and then we throw our hands up like a dab. And so every one of them has a picture of that. But with my buddies, we never did a goodbye, nothing like that.
Yeah.
We can go years without talking, and they'll plug back in.
You step right back in.
If time never stopped, no matter where.
I was just going to say it, despite how great it gets, and it gets great.
And it's just like time doesn't stop. And so I think that's where we are. We put a pause in our life, but we know that no matter what, the drop of a dime, we're there for each other without any questions asked. And so it's a unique thing, that connection that I have with these guys.
And you have taken that from the military and injected it directly into how the business operates. I think that's half of the battle, is building a culture inside of an organization that it's self-perpetuating, right? Like it's infectious in a good way. And I sense that every time I walk into Avilas. It's awesome.
Man, you hit it right in the head, the word culture. Steph told me, like, what's our culture? What's the culture that we want to, it's our family restaurant. But what is, somebody walking off the street coming to work for us? Like, we welcome him. And so our biggest thing when we build out the restaurant there, we do a lot of work. There's a lot of pains, but we wanted to put our heart. So when you walked in there, you felt like at home. When you sit down, you can just forget about all the craziness that's going around and just focus on the food.
Yeah.
How's your day and what you like? So, Steph always says, we want to bring people together through our food. And the guys that work for us, they know that I see them like family. My own kids that work with us, my nephew, my niece, I see them the same, and so I'm fair and I'm just. And it's one thing the military taught me, and I had a sergeant that would say, Sergeant Miller, you don't have to like the person behind the uniform, you just have to respect the rank.
Yeah.
And so that's always kept me I feel like on the right course, even though sometimes you may think you're not on the right course, you kind of gonna, as your compass to go back.
So in terms of culture, maybe share, we talked about this at the bench the other day as well, the adventure of going and doing the Washington Commanders and Taste of the DMV and getting prepared for that, because maybe you could share, how did you find out about it? And then I got a feeling Steph was the instigator and said, yep, or did you find out about it?
So we were still sitting out of our house, and one of our customers, a huge Commanders fan, sent us a link. Hey, you guys should apply for this thing. As at the time in 2021, before the 2021 season kicked off, they had got rid of the name of the Redskins. They called themselves the Washington football team. So they were trying to change their brand, re-image. And so they opened a competition called Flavors of the DMV. And they invited anybody and everybody. The only stipulation was that you could not be a fast food chain. And they're like, mom and pop shops, restaurants, food trucks, and others. And I'm like, well, I think we're the others, like we don't have any of that stuff, but, we're selling food. And as we're going to do it, Steph was like, oh, I don't think we know, like, we're not ready. Self-doubt.
I got to pause here because it's funny to me that Steph was the visionary and said, we're going, and then gets you to 300 tacos. But now you're bought in on the vision and you're like, no, it's time to level up our game. We're going to go and shoot higher.
100%. See, Ted, like when she doesn't lie, I didn't believe in this. And I'm like, yeah, okay, so talk to me. I never saw it as big as she did. And after the first day we sold, I'm like, wow, like we sold a lot. The investment was minimal on our end. Now, granted, the overhead was non-existent because we had family members that are working for us. And so you're for free and it's just for the cause. So I'm like, I told her that we're on to something, and slowly, I bought in. I wanted her to do the initial legwork. Because in the entrepreneurial world, we have rainy days.
Right.
And so when the going gets tough, I wanted her to have that grit already in there. Like, you know what? I did all this work just for me to back out right now. No. And so, and she hasn't, and she's been there, every step of the way. And so with this competition, I took it to her. Did you see this? She's like, yeah. She's like, are you going to apply? And of course, like, oh, but what if? And I'm like, look, Steph, the worst thing these guys are going to do to us is tell us no.
Yeah.
And then we'll move on. And, but I also left in for a couple of weeks because I had my own self-doubt. And I was like, I don't know if we're ready. One thing I know is that, and I learned in the military, is that you never want to show your fear. You may be scared, but you put one foot in front of the other, you keep going, keep marching.
Yeah.
Because it's contagious. And if your guys see that there's no fear in you, they're like, all right, well, he's not scared. I'm not going to be. And I was looking at my sergeants like, well, they're not scared. So, like, we're on the right path. So I didn't want to let the guys, and at the time it was our family, that I also had my doubts and I was nervous. That may be way above our level. But I've never been one to shy away from a challenge. I think a week went by and she's like, so you're not going to apply for that? And I'm like, no, I am. So I felt like she called me out. So like, now I sat down, submitted the application. And then I was like, it's done. And she's like, okay. 3 weeks later, we didn't hear nothing. So I was like, you know what? They probably disregarded us. We sat down. I got an email. And I was like, Steph, what are you doing? It's like, I think she was at work. Or I was like, go sit down. Because we just got accepted. So we got invited to participate at the next level for the commander. So we're in 20 to moved on to the next round. We showed up there. Her mom made us original shirts. Like, these things my brother-in-law makes them. And we've come a long way with that. But I mean, it was, and we still have them because I mean, it's just memorabilia.
Yeah.
We come in humble.
But hungry.
And hungry.
Sorry, bad dad joke.
And so we showed up there. I was like, you know what? Let's let the food do the talking. There's other people that we never been showboaters. But other people came in, they came prepared. They had their cheer squad. And I was like, it makes you feel a little bit little.
Yeah.
But you're like, you know what? Nah, don't even worry about that. What it counts is the food. And so sometime later, we get the call that we were 1 of 6 winners. And so we became official vendors at the Commander Stadium, 2 locations in there, did that for 3 years. So, and then that was a whole nother learning process in itself where you had to like be quick on your feet.
I want to shift gears to, we talked about this the other day, how do you react when somebody says, thank you for your service?
I don't like it. I don't like it. When I was in, I was just, didn't even have a combat patch. I wanted people to know that I'm in the Army, I'm in the service. But looking back, I'm like, wait a minute. I don't like people telling me thank you for your service. The reason is because there's other generations that went in when they didn't want to. They got drafted. I get a lot of great benefits from the VA, from the military, the VA home loan, that military space, some of my schooling. So I was like, I chose to go. Nobody forced me to go. I could have done something else out here. Yeah. If I didn't do it, that was my choice. I don't like it. I will always tell another veteran, thank you for your service, especially the ones that are from the Vietnam area. And because those generations I look up to them.
I want to ask a couple of rapid fire questions. The intent is I ask real fast, fire off, and then just, real fast, what's the, 2 or 3 headlines that pop into your head? So the first one is, what is a phrase or acronym or Army saying that you never want to hear ever again?
Okay. One is at ease.
Yeah.
Snap to it. And you're always on your toes. And the other one is fallen.
Those are 2 of probably the dreaded ones. Okay, that's the first one. The next is what is a common Army phrase that you use all the time now, and you just can't shake that? It's part of your vocabulary. Maybe you use it in the restaurant.
Steph said it. Slow as smooth as fast. And we used to clear houses. Our sergeant would tell us, hey guys, slow as smooth as fast. So we're gonna walk through this first, left, right. And so here in the restaurant, the waiters, the servers, a lot of them never served before, and we're a brand new team, and so they'd mess up orders, and I'm in the kitchen, I'm on the line.
Yeah.
And so the knife hand comes out, and I'm like, guys, get your head out, like. And I was, all right, guys, let's take a deep breath. Listen, remember this phrase: slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And so we have it on our pre-shift meetings. And every time our front of house manager, Lily, she says, all right, what's that thing that everyone always says? And without fail, they always mess it up. And they're like, I'm like, guys, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. So I apply that. I tell them, hey, guys, sometimes got to slow it down, see, scan, and then we can take off running.
That's it.
All
right, next question. Favorite MRE?
Ooh.
It's tough. It's a tough one. See, you got to decide whether you're basing it off of the pound cake or is it, remember the Charms?
Yeah.
It was Natick Labs' version of, sweet candies.
I think it'd be anyone that would have the jalapeno cheddar.
Oh,
Yes. That thing was amazing. Yes.
We had guys that knew the number, like if they saw the box in the case, they could like figure out which MREs, and then there's the whole bartering system, right? You're trading left and right.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Which is your least MRE favorite?
Oh, I didn't like, what was it? Mac and chili, a chili bean mac. Oh, yeah. Chicken breast.
Did you guys ever have the eggs?
Oh,
that thing was horrible. One time, that was enough for me. Like, I know. Yeah.
When we went into Kuwait right after 9/11, we started off with MREs and then we graduated to Mermites. Or no, it was the in between. I can't even remember the name of it. At the hot plate, the eggs were like, it was like a cube. It was a square.
Yeah.
So probably not something that would be on the menu at Avilas. Which brings me to the next rapid fire. I'm trying to keep it under a 5-minute fire mission, which, by the way, the spirit and intent of that is, in artillery, a 5-minute fire mission is you're shooting the rounds as hard and fast as you can over that 5-minute span. So there was one that I wanted to ask you, and it was, what's your favorite item that's on the menu at Avilas?
So I'm thankful for birria. I love it. It's native to Guadalajara. It has a lot of our family tradition in it. But my favorite taco that I go to is lengua. It's beef tongue. And it's my taco that I hold to every taqueria that I go try to. If you don't have it on the menu, are you a taqueria? And then if you have it, if it's done right, I'm like, all right, now I know the rest of your stuff is good. So for me, lengua. But I'm always be forever grateful with, like Steph said earlier, the taco that started it all, the birria taco.
The taco that started it all. That is a t-shirt. We got to make that happen. Favorite either military movie, quote, or scene from a military movie?
Oh, man. So, okay, I would say that American Sniper, where he's looking down that lady and down his sights, because I found myself in those situations a lot where had I pulled the trigger, there's a lot of people walking around right now in Afghanistan that they're alive because I didn't pull the trigger. And that could have gone bad for both of us.
Sure.
That wasn't the bolo. And it was always a common thing, motorcycle, white shirt, same description.
The whole be on the lookout definitely gets people, like, for those that are maybe not aware, right? It's a list that you get that's, hey, as you're out and about in patrols, we're looking for specific individuals. And I mean, you want to get that right. That's not something that you want to mess up.
So that scene, and I could feel myself breathing hard because it took me back to when I was looking down the 240. And the guy come with the motorcycle, that possible V-bid. And so when I see things like that, it your hands start sweating. Because you lived it. But I would say that's one of the scenes it's powerful for me. But Lone Survivor was a great movie.
Yeah, there's some really good ones out there. I mean, I have a buddy that is not a big fan of the Hurt Locker because he feels that it is more of an individual kind of going rogue and not realistic and whatnot. But there's one scene in that movie that I felt, which was when Jeremy Renner's character steps into the grocery store after the deployment and he's just standing there in the aisle staring at food that he hadn't seen in a year, and the music is playing in the background and he's just fixated on it, but also you could tell his mind is somewhere else. And I still remember that sensation of coming back to civilization and that transition period. Like it just feels it. The sights, the sounds, the smells are so dramatically different from our time overseas. So that's one of mine, but we're going to glide into the transition here. I've got 2 more segments in my head we can talk through. And again, if there's anything that you want to throw my way, by all means, this is always a back and forth. But when we met at the bench the other day, I think you had mentioned a couple of mentors that were kind of significant in your life, particularly from military service. And then maybe there's a few others after service. Maybe you could just share a little bit about those individuals and how they impacted you personally. I would say finding a light and transitioning, but also maybe some of those life lessons that they shared with you that you think are instrumental in the success that you've had. So
Yeah, so we met this couple, retired Air Force couple, David and Sharon Coley. He's a retired Air Force colonel. She's a retired lieutenant colonel. She's the first female African-American pilot to fly a C-5. And so we met her. They had us reading a lot of like self-help books and how to be also not just teaching us success principles and also as a family, as a unit.
Yeah.
I've never said this. The only person that knows this is Stephanie. And I call him Sir, the Colonel, and he does not know this, but he saved my life because he came into me at 2015 was a very dark. I had just come back, a dark period of my life where, just like you said, you're walking around, I'm white knuckling the steering wheel. I couldn't be around crowds, anxiety, things were just going south. And he came in, and I don't know if it was I was missing that military camaraderie, that direction, and he was able to talk to me. Was you just got to get it done. And I was like, all right, yes, sir. Roger that. And so a lot of their success principles, and Sharon, I'm more afraid of her than him. And because when Sharon, when she goes off on you, you don't want to hear it. And so you don't want to let her down. And so they've always been huge supporters of us, and they're happy that, our paths had to go a little bit different, but they've always been calls on the back end and like, hey, we see you guys. We're excited for you guys. And because, they tell us that success principles are universal.
Sure.
And so there's a book that they had us read by Jeff Olson called The Slight Edge. And in that book, it talks about one of the concepts in there, small tasks, easy to do, easy not to do. You take, if you eat 20 donuts in one sitting, you're going to regret it. Do it again. But one day, for 10 years, just a little small shift, and it'll mess you up. What if you made a little bit of change, a positive thing to better yourself? Doesn't have to be crazy, but just small things, small increments.
Yeah.
And so, they've been instrumental. And so today, everything, even with the business, me and Steph always ask ourselves, like, well, what would the Colonel say? What would they tell us right now? And so, they've, even though they're not as actively in our life anymore, we still keep them in the back of our minds. I'm going to be forever grateful for him. He came into a life, and point in my life that I needed him just to pull me out of that dark spot that I was in.
I think that speaks to the power of mentors, mentorship. And I think it's part of the military DNA, which I think is a super positive force. It's people don't recognize the impact that they can have on others.
He would tell us, like, stop keeping up with the Joneses, like, don't care about what your neighbor's doing, like, focus on you. And so he's like, importance of mentorship. And, to this day, he always taught us, always chase people who are further in life than you are.
Yeah.
You see when someone has something, like, your first thought should be, how did they do it so I can learn how to do it? Not, I want that.
Right.
It's not, oh, they're lucky. No, they're not lucky. They worked hard for it.
I love that. A similar spin on that I tell my kids all the time is, listen, you're entitled to the effort and the energy and the hard work that you put into something. You're not entitled to the end result. I may have stolen that from Stephen Pressfield or somebody else along those lines. I can't remember where it was stuck in the brain, but I think that's a truism. And I think that veterans instinctively, or know that because of training, right? I don't want to say instinctively, but the type of people that go into the military, serve, do well, or get out honorably, like they just have that ethos. And I'm glad that maybe you rediscovered that in a new way in a civilian environment.
We brought our business here downtown Leesburg with two other taquerias, and Colonel, he would tell us, like, iron sharpens iron, and so they're going to bring the best out of you and you bring the best out of them. And he was the one that said, a rising tide raises all ships.
Yeah.
We're just a little tugboat, organization in there. And so that's been our mentality when we're here. We're not the tide. We're just we're the tugboat. Downtown Leesburg is the tide, and so when we bring our business here and who we are as people, we want to augment and complement and add to how already great downtown Leesburg is.
Could you share a little bit more about that? Just, what have been your efforts to get tight with the community here in Leesburg? What types of activities, initiatives have you taken to put Avilas on the map?
So we're in a very unique situation where we're blessed. We have the former owners of Trungo, the spot we took over, Mike and Sashi. They've been super helpful with us along the process. And so, they've gone out of their way to, like, you should talk to this person, talk to that person.
So I think to kind of, I'm going to segue into wrapping things up. What I am interested in is, I know that there's some stories behind some of the menu items. Maybe you could share just one or two explanations of why that particular item is on the menu and who it came from.
There's something with all the food, even the salsas. There's a who made this, and was my sister, Steph. But one of the things that I'm super proud about is the al pastor taco, because everything there has a story to it. And one thing that I love when people come in there, they walk away learning something new about it. But I will say the birria is I think Steph said it earlier, it takes us 16 hours to make from start to finish. It's not the ingredient. You can YouTube the ingredients. Not the ingredients, it's the process.
It's the process.
It's the process on how you make things. And it's how Mama Julia did, my mom's mom, how she did it. And so that birria recipe, what gives it that color is that grease. And we harvest it, and it comes from the animal. Because her nursing career, she would make us grease that would give the tortillas colors, but it was lacking the flavor. And you can only get that from the animal fat. So we've had instances where some of our employees has dropped a quart of that birria grease, and to us that's liquid gold.
Yeah,
and it almost gives us a heart attack. We're like, drop anything else but that. The taco that it's the gateway to the rest of our menu.
Yeah.
Once you get that birria, you're hooked.
I want to bring it home here and just ask what you're willing to share as far as Steph's contributions to this success and what it means to you to have her as your teammate, as your other half, as you've built out the business, and even maybe rewinding back in time and reflecting a bit on going from Colorado to family dinner night.
So yeah,
you getting the Reaper Brigade yet?
We Lily, she runs it kind of, and I think that's why I like her, because she's kind of like me. If I was a female, I'd be just like Lily, our front of house manager. And so yeah, we're getting these guys, whipping them into shape, and I'm instilling some military things in them. But we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her.
Yeah,
she's been instrumental. She does a lot of the behind the scenes that we call them unsung heroes. And so she's definitely crucial in that. There's things that I have this bad habit where if I'm having a hard time with something, I'll procrastinate with it. And I'll leave it there, leave it there. And she knows that. And she's like, you want me to take over this? Like, all right, yeah, sure. Yeah. And so she holds it down. And just like she's done in the military, now we have, kids. She holds the fort down at home. So not only does she work, also run around and get the kids to sports, and she's running a business, because the business doesn't stop. Because I come home and I'm like, we're unwinding. And so, her being there, being my rock, as, allows me, and I've said this, that like, they help me look good. I get the easy part, but it's a lot of behind the scenes, and it'd be very tough to do this without her. And as far as the inspiration, the love, and she has this thing where she's very oriented, and I like that too, though, where, we're very, pay attention to details, and she's just like that, so we're not going to pass a plate.
Sure.
And so her finger's always on the pulse as well. So, I mean, she's crucial. She's been crucial to this, and me being able to walk with her. And I've told her it's like, one of the things that's been super attractive for me to you is you're a go-getter. I wasn't looking for, and there's nothing wrong with the homemaker, but I just wasn't looking for a homemaker. I was looking for someone that I could run with, and that could stretch me, and she's it.
I love everything about that, and on top of it, that's how I feel about my Meg. You want somebody who makes you better. My mom even said to me one time, there's almost something a little bit selfish about it, because you want to be with somebody that makes you better, right? Like, there is a slight, but it's not, it's self-interest, but in the most positive way that you could think of. So I know that you found that with Steph and everything that you built here. So appreciative of Team Avila and you guys sharing your story with us here on Oath and Oak Lines. I think what you guys are doing is remarkable, and we've just enjoyed the heck out of, one, hearing your story, but two, the food. We're going to be back in as soon as possible to come chow down. I do want to take a moment and say thanks to our friends and partners here at Rebellion. We're upstairs here, downtown historic Leesburg, right off of King Street. Rebellion Bourbon Bar and Kitchen is our strategic partner and forever sponsor. So thankful to them. I also want to tell a big thanks to Matt Williams, Gravel Drive, our friends over at Locomoto, also are a part of what we're building here. So again, thank you so much, Team Avila, and Abraham. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
No, Ted, it's an honor to thank you that, you invited us here and to give people like us a platform to voice and to get this out to the veterans. And they're on that bridge of just do it. Just go for it.
that's the most important part of the story, is the inspiration, and just do it. So take it from the Avilas. It can happen. With that, I'm going to sign off and just say thanks to our teammates, Rebellion, Bourbon Bar and Kitchen here, and stay rooted, folks, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us on the Oak Lines. Follow Oath and Oak on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at the Oath and Oak Outpost. Stay rooted. Find your outpost.